Today's story follows Marcus Williams, a 32-year-old accountant from Chicago who dared to dream beyond his cubicle walls. While his colleagues laughed at his ambitious 5-year plan to build wealth, calling him crazy and unrealistic, Marcus possessed something they didn't: an unshakable belief in his vision and the determination to follow through despite the ridicule. Through the application of Napoleon Hill's timeless principles, particularly the power of mastermind thinking, Marcus would transform from a struggling office worker drowning in debt to a multi-millionaire entrepreneur. But before we begin this story, I ask that you help me by subscribing to the channel, like the video, and tell me what city you're watching from. This will help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Marcus Williams stood in the corner of the corporate break room, watching his colleagues laugh at something on their phones. At 32, he had spent 8 years climbing the ladder at Henderson & Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm in downtown Chicago. His corner cubicle, modest salary, and predictable routine had become his entire world. But today was different. Today, Marcus carried a folded piece of paper in his shirt pocket, a plan that would either change everything or confirm what everyone already whispered about him. "Williams, you're dreaming again," called out Janet from accounting, noticing his distant stare. "Still planning to buy that mansion in Lake Forest?" The break room erupted in laughter. Marcus had made the mistake of sharing his vision during last month's team meeting. He had spoken about financial freedom, about creating multiple income streams, about a future where money worked for him instead of the other way around. "Marcus thinks he's going to be the next Warren Buffett," chuckled Dave, stirring his coffee. "Maybe you should focus on getting that promotion first, buddy." Marcus touched the paper in his pocket. It contained his detailed plan, a systematic approach to building wealth through strategic investments, side businesses, and disciplined saving. He had spent months researching, calculating, and preparing. Every number, every timeline, every contingency had been carefully considered. "You know what your problem is, Marcus?" said Janet, her voice carrying that familiar tone of condescension. "You think you're special. You think you can just skip the line and become rich overnight." "It's not overnight," Marcus replied quietly. "It's a 5-year plan." The laughter grew louder. 5 years seemed like a lifetime to people who lived paycheck to paycheck, who measured success by the size of their next raise or the approval of their supervisors. 5 years. Dave nearly choked on his coffee. "Marcus, you can't even save enough for a new car. How are you going to build an empire?" As his colleagues filed back to their desks, Marcus remained alone with his thoughts. He pulled out the paper and read it again. The numbers were solid, the strategy was sound, but doubt began to creep in. Not about the plan itself, but about whether he had the strength to pursue it, while everyone around him believed he was chasing an impossible dream. That evening, Marcus sat in his studio apartment, staring at the wall where he had pinned up his written goals. His burning desire for financial independence wasn't just about money. It was about proving that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things if they had the courage to believe in themselves and the discipline to follow through. Tomorrow, he would take the first step. Tonight, he would prepare for the ridicule that was sure to come. 6 months into his plan, Marcus faced his darkest hour. The numbers on his bank statement told a brutal story. His savings account had dwindled to $847, and his credit card debt had climbed to $3,200. His side business selling financial consulting services had attracted exactly 0 clients, and his investment portfolio had lost 12% of its value in a market downturn. "I told you so," Janet said, not bothering to hide her satisfaction as she overheard Marcus declining lunch with the team. "Still working on that empire, or are you ready to join the real world?" Marcus forced a smile and returned to his cubicle, where a stack of rejection letters awaited him. Every bank had declined his loan application for expanding his consulting business. Every potential client had chosen larger, more established firms. Every investment seemed to move against him. That evening, his sister Claire called from Denver. "Marcus, Mom's worried about you. She says you're obsessing over this get-rich-quick scheme." "It's not a scheme, Claire. It's a systematic approach. Look, I love you, but maybe it's time to be realistic. You're 32. You have a stable job. Why risk everything for some fantasy?" After hanging up, Marcus sat in his apartment, surrounded by business books, financial statements, and his increasingly desperate notes. His landlord had left a voicemail about the upcoming rent increase. His car needed repairs he couldn't afford. His colleagues' laughter echoed in his memory. For the first time since beginning his journey, Marcus considered giving up. The plan that had once seemed so clear now felt like a cruel joke. He was working 16-hour days, 8 at the office, 8 on his business, and had nothing to show for it except debt and exhaustion. But then he remembered something he had read in Napoleon Hill's work. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. The phrase had seemed like motivational nonsense when he first encountered it, but now, in his moment of crisis, it took on new meaning. Marcus opened his notebook and began to write. Not about his failures, but about what each failure had taught him. The rejected loan applications had forced him to refine his business model. The lost investments had taught him valuable lessons about market timing. The lack of clients had shown him the importance of building relationships before selling services. As he wrote, something shifted inside him. The setbacks weren't roadblocks. They were education. Every no was bringing him closer to the eventual yes. Every loss was teaching him how to win. By midnight, Marcus had rewritten his plan, not abandoning it but strengthening it with the wisdom that only comes from facing real adversity. He would continue, not because success was guaranteed, but because he had discovered something more valuable than money, the unshakable faith that he could overcome any obstacle if he refused to quit. The next morning, his colleagues noticed something different about him. Where they expected to see defeat, they saw quiet determination. Where they expected surrender, they saw renewed purpose. Marcus Williams was no longer the same man who had started this journey 6 months ago. He had been forged in the fire of failure and emerged stronger. 18 months into his journey, Marcus made a discovery that would change everything. It wasn't a secret investment strategy or a hidden business opportunity. It was a fundamental shift in how he approached his relationships and goals. The breakthrough came during a chance encounter at a coffee shop near his office. Marcus was reviewing his latest financial projections when he overheard 2 entrepreneurs discussing their struggles with cash flow. Instead of walking away, he approached them. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his heart pounding. "I couldn't help but overhear. I'm a financial consultant, and I think I might be able to help." And then, what followed was a 2-hour conversation that resulted in his first real client, a small tech startup that needed help restructuring their finances. But more importantly, Marcus realized he had been approaching his business all wrong. He had been trying to sell his services to strangers instead of building genuine relationships with people who actually needed help. This revelation sparked what Napoleon Hill called the mastermind principle, the coordination of knowledge and effort between 2 or more people for the achievement of a definite purpose. Marcus began seeking out other ambitious individuals, not to sell to them, but to learn from them and support their goals. He started attending networking events, joining business groups, and most importantly, offering value before asking for anything in return. When he met Sarah, a struggling restaurant owner, he didn't pitch his services. He spent 3 hours helping her understand her cash flow problems for free. When she succeeded in turning her business around, she referred 5 other clients to him. Within 6 months, Marcus had built a network of 12 entrepreneurs who regularly shared opportunities, insights, and referrals. His consulting business was finally profitable, but more importantly, he had discovered that wealth wasn't built in isolation. It was built through the power of aligned relationships. His colleagues at Henderson and Associates noticed the change. Marcus no longer seemed desperate or defensive about his goals. He carried himself with quiet confidence, and his desk was constantly buzzing with calls from clients. But the real transformation was deeper than his growing success. "You're different," Dave observed one day. "Less frantic." What changed? Marcus smiled, thinking of his mastermind group meeting scheduled for that evening. "I stopped trying to do everything alone," he said simply. The financial results spoke for themselves. His consulting revenue had reached $8,000 per month. His investment portfolio had recovered and was showing consistent growth, and he had paid off all his credit cards. But Marcus knew the real victory wasn't in the numbers. It was in the relationships he had built and the value he was creating for others. At his apartment that night, Marcus updated his goals on the wall. The timeline had accelerated beyond his wildest projections. What he had planned to achieve in 5 years was happening in 3. The power of connecting with the right people, sharing knowledge, and working toward aligned goals had multiplied his efforts exponentially. As he prepared for bed, Marcus reflected on the journey. The man who had started with nothing but a plan and burning desire had discovered that success wasn't about having all the answers. It was about finding the right people to share the questions with. His phone buzzed with a text from Thomas, one of his mastermind partners. "The real estate deal is moving forward. Thanks for the introduction to your financial contact. This partnership is changing everything." Marcus smiled, understanding now that true wealth flowed not from individual achievement, but from the synchronized efforts of like-minded people working toward a common vision of success. 3 years after they had called him crazy, Marcus Williams walked into the Henderson and Associates office for the last time. In his briefcase was a resignation letter, but more importantly, a testament to what becomes possible when an ordinary person refuses to accept ordinary limitations. His mastermind group had evolved into something extraordinary. What started as 12 struggling entrepreneurs had become a network of successful business owners, each amplifying the other's success. The real estate deal Thomas had mentioned had turned into a multi-million-dollar development project. Sarah's restaurant had expanded into a chain of 5 locations. Marcus's consulting firm now employed 15 people and served clients across 3 states. "You're really leaving?" Janet asked, her voice carrying none of the mockery from years past. The numbers were undeniable. Marcus's net worth had surpassed $2.3 million, and his passive income exceeded his old salary by 400%. "It's time," Marcus replied, cleaning out his desk. "I've got bigger goals to pursue." Dave approached, his expression serious. "Marcus, I owe you an apology. We all do. You saw something we couldn't see." Marcus paused, remembering the ridicule, the doubt, the nights when he questioned everything. "You know what I learned? You didn't see it because you weren't looking for it. Success isn't about having special talents. It's about having the faith to pursue a definite plan and the wisdom to surround yourself with people who share your vision." That evening, Marcus stood in his new penthouse office overlooking Lake Michigan, the same lake he had dreamed about during those dark nights in his studio apartment. But the real transformation wasn't in his bank account or his address. It was in the man he had become. His phone rang. It was Michael, a young accountant who had reached out after hearing about Marcus's story. "Mr. Williams, I have this plan, but everyone thinks I'm crazy." Marcus smiled, remembering his own journey. "Tell me about it." Over the next hour, Marcus shared not just strategies and tactics, but the deeper truth he had discovered, that every great fortune begins with a burning desire backed by faith, organized into a definite plan and accelerated through the power of harmonious relationships. "The difference between dreamers and achievers," he told Michael, "isn't the size of their dreams. It's their willingness to act on those dreams when everyone else calls them impossible." 6 months later, Marcus received an invitation to speak at a business conference. The topic, "From Cubicle to Millions, the Power of Mastermind Thinking." As he looked out at the audience of entrepreneurs and dreamers, he saw faces filled with the same hunger that had driven him from that small cubicle to this moment. "3 years ago," he began, "my colleagues laughed when I shared my 5-year plan to build wealth. They called me crazy, unrealistic, a dreamer. Today, I want to tell you that being called crazy isn't an insult. It's a compliment. It means you're thinking bigger than the people around you. The audience hung on every word as Marcus shared his journey, but more importantly, the principle that had made it all possible, that success is not an individual achievement, but a collective effort of like-minded people working toward aligned goals. As the presentation ended, Marcus looked out at the crowd and saw the same spark in their eyes that had once burned within him. Some would take action, some would make excuses, but for those who chose to act, who chose to believe in their dreams despite the ridicule, who chose to surround themselves with others who shared their vision, for them, the impossible was simply the untested. Remember, Marcus concluded, the person who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person who is doing it. Your dreams are not too big. Your thinking just needs to be bigger than your circumstances. And so it is that success comes to those who become success conscious, who dare to aim high, and who understand that the power of the mastermind principle can transform any ordinary person into an extraordinary achiever.